So here is my handy viewfinder with the scene I want to recreate. This is Kachina woman from the Dead Man's Pass Trail out in Boynton Canyon. And I'm working on a vertically formatted 8x10 ampersand gesso board panel. I'm using a little bit of alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue as a mixture to create this sketch. So as I was walking down the Dead Man's Pass trail, I knew that I wanted to capture Kachina woman at this time of day, and the sun is setting, so I was kind of, trying to find something somewhat close to the trailhead. But I kept walking and discovered this little natural opening off to the side of the trail. And this viewpoint is flanked by these two trees. So it's just really the perfect opening, and it's a great opportunity to see how working with the landscape versus against it, really creates the ideas that you're working with and informs your entire process. So I just thought that was really, really beautiful how that came together. Now I can see that the light is quickly vanishing from that slope leading up towards the spire. So I'm quickly blocking in my mass down below here with a cooler, more neutral red. You can see some beautiful notes of lavender in that foreground plane. There's also some vegetation that is getting a little bit of that last light on it. You can see the warm versus cool vegetation. All of this is really kind of a middle to dark value. The foreground is typically your darkest values. So, I've got a bit of cooler vegetation that I'm painting in with ultramarine blue and cad yellow medium and alizarin crimson, kind of going back and forth between that and the cad red medium. And then I've got these bushes that are getting hit with that sunlight, so the core shadow of those is going to be a little bit warmer, and the highlights will be more of the cad yellow medium mixed in. I'll do a little bit of cad lemon yellow on those bushes that are kind of tilting away from the light, just to give it a little bit of a cooler feeling. And I've really just got a few places here on those sloping rocks where the light is hitting, and it's just going to be a little bit of cad yellow medium and cad red light mixed into that ground plane red mixture that I already have. So once I get this all kind of laid in, painting in the light will be the last thing that I do on this foreground plane. This is another way that I'm co-creating with nature. I know that the light is going to go first on this hillside. Next, it will disappear off of Kachina woman. So I'm really painting bottom to top with the idea in mind that that is the direction of the light. So you can estimate that a little bit by, the placement of the sun, but you can also see how that light is kind of disappearing off of the hillside in real time. And you can see how much it's still staying on the side of this spire that I'm painting. This upright feature is going to be probably my darkest mass, and that is what I'm seeing, but it's also exaggerated because it's the focal point of the scene, and I want the most contrast to be here. The rock is a lot warmer too than the foreground rock, and there's a little bit of those darker blues in the neck of this feature, and that helps to also communicate the height of it, this grand monumental feeling of her. And in my drawing too, you can see how those lines are converging a bit more to give that sense of scale. So I'm, in a very gestural way, very quickly laying in the paint. Of course, I'm still painting thin to thick. I'm kind of scrubbing in the color and then going in very quickly over it with, the paint. And because I have this idea in mind that I don't have time for a full block in, I really just have to paint it as the light's happening, again, because the sun is setting as I'm painting it, and I want to capture the light as it's happening. So I've laid in my area of light on the side of this feature, which is definitely more orange than the foreground highlights. And there are some really beautiful mid-tone transitions where the rock kind of rounds from light into shadow. So that's kind of a mixture between those colors and values that I've created. And just painting right into the painting as I'm moving along here. Wet into wet. Kind of modeling that crack that goes along the side a bit more. I'm really trying to keep it very loose and gestural and not getting into, any details here. Just kind of the main shapes. You can also tell that light is steadily vanishing off the rock. So I've really timed this quite perfectly. And really you just want to paint as quickly as you can when the light is fleeting. What I always try to do is I try to set up the drawing at least a little bit before I know the light is going to go. So I have, some guidance, and I can just lay in those blocks of light and shadow and not worry about, the composition or the drawing. It was really beautiful how this worked out. It felt like I was just in the flow. I came across this scene and it was truly, very perfect, simple. You don't want to do anything too complex or grand at this time of day unless you've got it all mapped out in a way. These background cliffs, I'm pushing the atmosphere on them a lot. You can tell that I've got a lot of grays here. The sunlight is still, low in the sky and providing this warmth on them. So I've got, a little bit more of my yellow and blue mixed into those sandstone mixtures, which gives it a very, tonal feeling. And the closer that you bring those values together and the less color, the less saturation in them really provides that sense of atmosphere. But I've, come away from having it too blue because of the time of day and because of the warmth of that sun and where it is. And just like a figure or a portrait, the elements around the main subject are going to be a lot less rendered. So there's this quality of, I don't want to say blurriness, but there's this, very undefined, very simplified background to really push the focus to Kachina woman. And I love painting spires like this because they really feel like figures in the landscape, and trees do as well. It feels like I'm painting this being, and when you're painting, you really get to study something in an intimate way, and it's like you can feel the consciousness in what you're painting. It doesn't matter if it's a rock or a person, but there's really a figurative aspect to this that I'm attempting to communicate as well. I've also dragged up some of those higher sandstone colors into my sky color, which warms it up a lot and brings those planes closer together. So you really get this feel of atmosphere, and you see this relationship between the land and the sky. And I love this time of day because of, how light and airy and more neutral the sky feels versus that really stark blue that it sometimes is, especially, in the middle of the day. This painting actually feels very effortless, and I think part of that is surrender to what you think you want to paint and just being guided by what's accessible to you and what inspires you the most. A lot of that is also because of how much I simplified the scene. So I really allowed myself to just communicate the essence of what's happening here, the major shapes, and the light. I really didn't need to paint in the whole sky, but I have the colors mixed and I'm out here and I still have a little bit of light left. So I wanted to get all of that in. Like I've said in previous videos, it also gives me context to work with. And, the light is gone now, but I still have light in the sky, so I can continue to refine a couple things. Really like taking notes, like I saw more highlight on those trees against the rocks, so I can add them in now while it's still fresh in my mind, even though I couldn't get to it as it was happening maybe. So those are benefits of working from life and working small enough so that you can remember everything that's happened or happening. So a lot of it is really painting directly what you see, being guided by the elements of nature, being guided by what the light is doing. But it's also, what you know. And then there's that personal artistic license, that creativity too, exaggerating the shape of Kachina woman, and, maybe making that diagonal line in the foreground of the trees a little more pronounced, so that it takes you in and directs you to the focal point. You can also see that line in the cliffs in the background that kind of also slant diagonally towards Kachina woman. So I've got these elements of line in my composition that help the scene. And I'm really working with what is there in front of me as well, because it really feels like there are these sloping diagonals. There's a little bit of vegetation too at the top of those rocks of this main feature here. And those are some nice dark accents that I feel help the scene. I really felt connected to Kachina woman on this day in particular because this whole month is the 11th moon cycle. In Native American tradition, there's a clan mother who has wisdom teachings for every month of the year. And so this is Walks Tall Woman. And that will be the title of the piece. She represents strength in vulnerability and persistence to accomplish what needs to be done. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you for next week's video.